Yeah, when we went on the expedition to Ilibalk, the old name for the current village of Usharol, which is just a few kilometers away from Jarkent, near the Chinese border, our intent was to follow up on the discovery of a large kairak, a large Nestorian gravestone, that had been discovered in 2014. And the goal of the expedition was to see if there were any further evidence of Christianity on the territory of Kazakhstan. And so a group of us from the Tandy Institute of Archaeology from Fort Worth, Texas, in the United States, did a partnership with Archaeological Expertise and Dr. Dima Vayakin, also under the auspices of the Society for the Exploration of Eurasia, with Dr. Christoph Baumer in Switzerland, and also under the cooperation of Dr. Baipakov here in Kazakhstan as well. And so we were there for a total of 25 days, doing first of all a dig to determine what was on site at Ilibalk. No archaeological dig had ever been done on the site of Ilibalk, the old Silk Road city that was just across the Jungar Pass from what was known as Al-Maluk, which was also a city along the Silk Road, over on the Chinese side. And so over the course of 25 days, we didn't find a whole lot related to Christianity until the last 2 days of the expedition, when we did a survey over an area of more than a square kilometer, systematically turning over stones and rocks to see if we could find any evidence of a graveyard. When we came across, almost by accident, the first stone, which was a round rock with just a simple cross on it. And that one was actually initially found by Archaeological Expertise archaeologist Mikhail. He is the one who found the first one on the first day. And so we had an idea of the area where there might be a necropolis, a grave area. And so the next day we continued our systematic search, and on that day we found 6 more stones, 2 of which had Syriac inscriptions. Actually, they probably had Syriac letters and were Old Turkic or Chagatai inscriptions that give probably the information about the person who died, a little bit about the year that they died. We still have not translated those. And so once those are translated, we'll have a better idea of the people that are there. Also, in June of 2017, we're going to have a second expedition, also in partnership with the Tandy Institute, hopefully with the Center for the Exploration of the Society of Exploration of Eurasia, and Archaeological Expertise. And now we know the location of the potential necropolis. We also know in the area there's cultural remains, potentially, of a Nestorian church that might be on site. And so it is our goal in June of 2017 to maybe perhaps come across some grave sites, to do some investigation, potentially find bones, and maybe even DNA analysis, as well as potentially look for what might be the evidence of a Nestorian church on the territory of Kazakhstan. I know for a fact that for 700 years along the area of the Silk Road, there were multiple confessions, multiple religions, people who interacted with one another. There were Nestorian Christians, there were Buddhists, there were Zoroastrians, and there were Muslims, and as well as shamanist followers of Tangrism. All of those confessions, all of those people interacted, traded with one another. At different times, different parts of these religions were stronger than others, but we know for a fact, even during the Mongol era, probably in that region, that Nestorian Christians and Buddhists and Muslims all interacted with one another. And this project, I think, demonstrates once again the presence of Turkic-speaking Christians that lived on the territory of Kazakhstan during the Middle Ages. Yes, very definitely. We know, based on the historical records, we know that Syrian Christianity went from what is now eastern Syria all the way across the Silk Road over the course of 300, 400, 500 years, and all the way into China. Some people even say even into Indonesia. There's even some slight evidence that they may have reached as far as Japan. So the Syriac Christianity may have spread further than any other confession of Christianity that we know of. That could potentially make them one of the strongest missionary churches in history, because at one point in time, the patriarch of the Assyrian church, who lived in today's near Damascus, in today's Iraq, that he probably was over more churches and over a broader area of territory than any other Christian leader. So that's a very fascinating story, and it is a story that is almost completely unknown by most people in the world today. It is almost a lost history. It's a secret history that almost no one knows about. What kind of footprint has been left behind by the ancient historians into modern culture? There may be some. There is nothing very blatant, but there are clues. There are small things that we see in the culture today. For example, amongst Kazakhs, in their what they call their tangba, the brands that they put on their sheep or their cattle. Some of the tribes, some of the groups have crosses that are marked from their tribe, from their pre-Mongolian past. Also, we notice in places like Turkmenistan and in parts of Uzbekistan, the way that they make their carpets, the designs of their carpets, will sometimes have indications of crosses on it. But one of the very interesting things that we have been investigating has been related to funeral meals. For example, when a Kazakh or a Uyghur or someone from a Central Asian background dies, they have a funeral meal on the 3rd, the 7th, and the 40th day. And there is no precedent for this in Muslim culture in the Middle East. But there is some connection on those funeral meals with Assyrian Christianity. We don't have definitive proof if this is the case, but it seems like that this religious practice that certain Kazakhs and Uyghurs and other Central Asian Muslims observe may actually have a connection to Nestorian historical practice of funeral meals, as opposed to a connection to Islam. Also, one thing that some people say here is that when Kazakhs serve bishbarmak and they give a sheep head, okay, and they will make the sign of the cross on the sheep head. Now, this is particularly true in the eastern half of Kazakhstan. They don't know the reason for the mark of the cross. Some people here say that is a Tangrist cross, that it's the sign of Tangr. But others say that no, actuality, it is a connection to some of the eastern tribes that lived here before the Mongols, like the Naiman and the Kiryei, that because they were Nestorian, that the sign of the cross on the sheep's head is because of their Christian past. Do we have proof of these things? No, we don't have definitive proof. But they seem to be potential cultural carryovers. These questions will probably be debated for a very long time, unless we find more archaeological evidence that point to the fact that these are true cultural carryovers. We don't know. And that's part of the reason that we need to do some more research. We need to find out more about these people. How many were there? What tribes were they from? Were they true Turkic speakers? How many different nationalities were made up of these people? We just don't know. And so one of the things that further archaeological expeditions can do are hopefully answer some of these questions.